Thank you for the invitation to share my thoughts with you as a member of the ERI team in Geneva. Did I volunteer for this role? No. But today I'm glad I was tapped on the shoulder by my provincial and asked to consider it. Thankfully, I joined a very supportive community and team that mentored and guided me as I navigated new concepts like human rights and advocacy, learned to collaborate with partner faith-based NGOs, and engage with the human rights mechanisms and the Human Rights Council on behalf of the Christian Brothers and Presentation Brothers Global Network. I'd like to stress that we on the ERI team see our role as representing and being a voice for advocacy for the global Edmund Rice Network. This takes many forms, but can be captured in ERI's twin-pronged strategy, conducting human rights and advocacy, capacity building programs, and engaging with the UN human rights mechanisms and the UN Human Rights Council on behalf of the Edmund Rice Network and projects. ERI believes that awareness raising and advocacy offers opportunities for the promotion of a rights-based and faith-based approach to social justice and ecological advocacy. Right from the outset, ERI has worked towards bringing about a change in mindset and culture within the Edmund Rice Network and Ministries from a service model to one that includes a rights-based approach. Over the years, members of the ERI team have conducted workshops in all the provinces, engaging in dialogue with members of the Edmund Rice Network at all levels and exploring together how we are being invited to respond to the call of the 2008 chapter to open our hearts to the cry of the poor and the earth and to be moved by prophetic action through advocacy and works for justice. The 2014 chapter call was even more specific in recognizing that it is the agenda of the world that sets the mission direction of the church and our congregation, and calling on the Edmund Rice Network to engage in advocacy with the voiceless, the marginalized, and all that are oppressed. This came on the heels of ERI gaining special consultative ECOSOC accreditation at the UN in 2012. This status gave ERI the opportunity to engage effectively with the human rights mechanisms and the Human Rights Council in Geneva. It also opened doors for ERI to be the advocacy voice of the Edmund Rice Network, working at the national and local level for the rights of the child, the right to a quality education, the rights of women and persons with disability, among other vulnerable groups, and today, the human right to a safe, clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. To give wing to these chapter directions and recognizing that ERI is a congregation initiative, provinces have played an important role in supporting and resourcing the ERI team in Geneva and New York. Thanks to the efforts of donor leader Kevin Cawley, Brian Bond, Moy Hitchens, Peter Harney, Kevin Mullen, Terry Dowling, and myself, as well as Presentation Brothers Dennis Clevas and Bernard Gazire, ERI is recognized today among faith-based NGOs, civil society organizations, permanent missions, and UN organizations, both for the impact of its capacity building programs, as well as the credibility of their submissions to the Universal Periodic Review, the treaty bodies, and the Human Rights Council, holding states accountable to respecting their human rights obligations. Among all faith-based NGOs present in Geneva, the ERI team is unique in that all three present members are Christian brothers and have been missioned by the congregation to form community and be the human rights and advocacy thrust of the congregation. I have just returned after conducting human rights and advocacy training programs with members of the network in Nairobi and with different groups, including the Solidarity Teacher Training College in Yambio, South Sudan. To know that I have rights, that I can claim them, and that ERI will uphold my rights at the UN is so empowering, was the response of one of the participants in Yambio, coming from a conflict-torn district. These, as well as the committed engagement of participants at the April Zoom training sessions and the 2-week Geneva training program coming up in June and November this year, convinced me that ERI's human rights and advocacy capacity building programs are addressing the agenda of the world, as well as having a multiplier impact within the Edmund Rice Network and beyond. I would like to draw your attention to the impact that ERI programs have had in inspiring Steve Rocha to set up Pratyek to empower children to claim their rights. Jessica Dewhurst, through the Justice Desk, to empower women and girls to stand up against gender-based violence and discrimination against women. And Cormac McCarthy to use photography as a medium for awareness and advocacy on behalf of people who are homeless in Ireland, as well as the strong social justice programs taking root in Edmund Rice schools globally, especially in India and England. These, among other creative initiatives in the Edmund Rice Network, are calling on ERI to step up and work proactively and collaboratively to ensure that all within the Edmund Rice Network are empowered with the knowledge and skills to claim their rights as well as the rights of those left furthest behind. In 2023, ERI, in collaboration with its country advocacy officers and partners, made submissions to the Universal Periodic Reviews of Argentina, Peru, Canada, Ghana, and Zambia, as well as to the Treaty Body Committee on the Rights of the Child for Ireland and South Africa. In addition, ERI delivered 34 oral statements at the 3 sessions of the Human Rights Council held in 2023 on issues ranging from violence against children and the right to education to the human rights situation in Myanmar, the Manipur crisis, and the adverse impact of climate change on the right to food. All this would not be possible if ERI was not based in Geneva. Yes, a question I've heard making the rounds recently is, does the ERI team need to be based in Geneva? The simple answer, based on my experience, is yes. Geneva was chosen because the UN human rights mechanisms and the UN Human Rights Council operate out of Geneva. ERI's engagement with these has exponentially increased over the last couple of years. Also, ERI's 2-week training in Geneva provides participants with the opportunity to observe and engage with the Human Rights Council and the treaty bodies, as well as permanent mission and UN representatives. Feedback indicates how these interactions leave a deep, inspiring impression on participants. This can be corroborated by those in this room who have had the opportunity to experience the Geneva training. Having our own community residence in Gaia and access to a French residential permit are big assets as well as a blessing for Brian and myself. With Terry turning 80 and returning to South Africa in December, the ERI team in Geneva will be down to Brian and myself. Brian's health has shown considerable improvement, and so with a little flexibility, help, and adaptation, Brian and myself could effectively maintain the ERI presence as well as run all elements of the Mission Cara project till June 2027 from Gaia, Geneva. However, we would love to have the presence of a third brother, Age Noba, to foremost form community with us and to be part of the ERI team to the extent he chooses. This would ensure that ERI is able to fulfill both its congregation mandate as well as honor its commitment to Mission Cara for the upcoming 3-year funding cycle till mid-2027. This will also give the CLT the ERI board and the team space to address succession planning and sustainability of the ERI mandate into the future. I believe that the role of ERI as the dedicated arm of the congregation is more relevant today than ever before. I also believe that if the CLG meeting in Shillong decides to adopt the call to keep engaging with advocacy as a congregation priority, then provinces will work together to find the resources that ERI needs into the foreseeable future. Thank you for this opportunity to share my passion in responding to the congregation's call to work towards creating a safe and healthy environment where all can aspire to enjoy their human rights as God's children. God bless and guide your conversations and discussions.